When the super-terrorist group known as Inferno finally reveals themselves to the League, will it only be the tip of a much more terrifying iceberg yet to come? Well, let's hop into the pages of Justice League Unlimited issue number 5 and catch up together, shall we? So then, as we join the book, the G20 summit is currently being held, and you better believe the League thinks that Inferno, the accelerationist terrorist group they've been fighting all series long, will use this opportunity to pull off another brazen attack. It's for all these reasons and more, it's all hands on deck to try and protect the delegates. We got the Flash, who is using this as a teaching opportunity for the young speedster known as Impulse, as well as our contractually obligated DC Comics deep cut in this case. The lovably obscure tag-along hero is none other than Thunderlord. Don't know who this guy is? Well, he's actually a 70s creation with ties to the old Super Friends cartoon. This guy can actually manipulate his voice in a series of interesting ways, and believe it or not, that Super Friends connection will actually end up making a lot more thematic sense by the end of the issue, trust me. Now, at first, everything seems a-okay. The good guy's got a couple speedsters, an Amazon, a Kryptonian, 2 different types of lanterns. What on earth could possibly challenge them, right? Well, about midway into the conference, everyone starts absolutely tripping balls. The world around them all melts away, and they start fighting a series of twisted creatures. Are these aliens? Is this another dimension, another planet? Is this hell? Who's to say for sure? But as you might have guessed, back on the Watchtower, it's absolutely code red DEFCON. 20 world leaders and 6 leaguers are missing in action, and if they don't get them back soon, this could all easily kick off World War III, what with all the nuclear superpowers in the world blaming each other and world stock markets taking an absolute dump amidst the uncertainty. Well, you know what, at least this is just a comic book fantasy and none of this is happening in the real world, right? Mr. Terrific and the other leaders try to put together a list of suspects as to who could be behind such a well-connected operation. Of course, the first names that come to mind are the Legion of Doom, but how could that possibly be? The Joker is in the wind. Lex Luthor is an amnesiac who's actively been working with Superman over in his book, and as far as Sinestro goes, he actually rejoined the Lantern Corps in that series. It's actually Batman and John Jones who get the opportunity to really flex their detective muscles this issue by going to the Atom. You'll recall in the Atom Project book, Palmer and Choi have actively been trying to fix the whole missing and misplaced superpower problem. Because of this, they've developed a device that they think will be able to track the power signatures of the missing Leaguers. Though they better hurry, because back over at the G20 summit, things aren't going very well at all. The Leaguers are slowly but surely being overwhelmed by monsters, while doing everything they can to protect the mouthy and admittedly bossy delegates. Things end up turning against the heroes pretty quickly, as poor Hal Jordan actually ends up getting dealt a pretty grievous injury during the battle. And with one of their heaviest hitters down, it looks like everyone else is going to have to pick up the slack, and that is admittedly exactly what Impulse does here. You see, while everyone else is busy fighting for their lives, Bart actually realizes something that everyone else missed, and that is that one of these stuffed suit politicians is acting weird. Well, I mean, weirder than most politicians. Everyone else is rightly terrified, but this guy is smiling like the cat who ate the canary, which of course leads Impulse to believe that this guy must be a double agent working for the Inferno. They also do a really fun thing with Impulse in this issue, and that is his internal monologue isn't actually words, but cute little comic strippy pictures. Do they do this elsewhere and I've just totally missed it? Because if so, I like it. Now, right around the same time, Impulse manages to weed out the mole in the G20 summit. Batman and John Jones come to the realization that perhaps Martian Manhunter's missing powers are actually to blame for this attack. Furthermore, as the Atom's machine explains, the 6 Leaguers were on Earth before eventually leaving completely to another dimension. Luckily, this is where the Flash and Thunderlord come in, again playing by the same rules that Grant Morrison had set up in all of their multiversal stories. You can actually transverse dimensions by finding the right musical tone. Thunderlord is able to manipulate his voice to create that tone, and then Wally West the Flash is able to vibrate his molecules in order to get everyone out of danger and into a neighboring dimension, which just so happens to be the Phantom Zone. I mean, normally this would be terrible news, but thankfully, because they entered the famous Kryptonian prison from a side door, they are unaffected by the dimension's negative effects, and because the Justice League just so happened to set up their own Phantom Zone door on the Watchtower, everyone is able to leave that way. With Inferno's threat thwarted, the mastermind behind this attack decides to reveal himself. Turns out this was the work of none other than Gorilla Grodd. Famous Flash foe who is only more powerful now after seemingly helping himself to some of Martian Manhunter's amazing abilities. Now the heroes assume they have Grodd dead to rights. After all, he's trapped on the Watchtower with no way out and about 100 different superheroes surrounding him. But this is actually where the other shoe ends up dropping, as Gorilla Grodd ends up activating Airwave, Inferno's own personal sleeper agent inside the Justice League, to help him escape by turning into, well, an Airwave. It's after that Grodd goes to meet up with the rest of the Inferno, who is revealed to be none other than the Legion of Doom. But oh wait, here's the twist. It's not the modern day Legion of Doom. This is actually the original Super Friends era Legion of Doom, who seem to be making use of time travel to appear here and now in the present. Want to know how the hell any of that is possible? Well, don't worry, because Mark Waid is setting up a whole crossover storyline between this and his Batman and Superman book, starting with Batman Superman issue 38. And believe it or not, it's on that note right there the comic comes to a close, everybody. And so that was Justice League Unlimited issue number 5, and once again Mark Waid manages to deliver one hell of a fun and exciting little issue. If anything, I think I really got to appreciate the brevity of this series. They probably could have ended up dragging out the Who is Inferno storyline for a whole other volume, but I appreciate them starting volume 2 with giving us a definitive answer. I had certainly theorized that Inferno might be the Legion of Doom because DC stories have done this sort of stuff before, be it with The Light in Young Justice or even Tartarus from the old Teen Titans, if you remember that. But I really gotta give Waid all the credit in the world for finding a fun and interesting new twist on this tried and true storyline. Yes, we're dealing with the Legion of Doom, but it's a time-displaced version, made up of versions of these villains who are admittedly much more, well, evil and villainous than they are right now. Also, you know, potentially younger and more spry too, if that's a direction they want to take with it, and I certainly hope they do. I also really appreciate just how deeply comic booky this whole thing feels. I'm also happy because this finally gives me an excuse to catch up on that Mark Waid Batman Superman book that I've sadly fallen behind on, even though everyone I know sings its praises as one of the best things on the shelf right now. Overall though, as far as this issue goes, I would give it a very strong 8 out of 10. Good stuff, very excited to see what happens next. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow, and, you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.